Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Open Format. In this episode, we'll talk about the origin of the ancient languages in the Indian subcontinent. Or for that matter, we can extend it by saying origin of languages across the Indian subcontinent. Given the enormity of the subcontinent and the extent of its area, there are more than 360 languages spoken across the region. And the dialect, which is a further breakdown of languages in the local terms, in the local way rather, there are many hundreds of them, which is split across the states and their own sub-regions. And talking about the vernaculars, that's a local most language, usually referred to as बोली in Hindi. कि बोली क्या है जो आपस में आप लोग बोलते हैं गांव में, देहात में, शहर में, किसी एक पर्टिकुलर रीजन की जो है एक मीडियम ऑफ एक्सचेंज बन जाती है भाषा के तौर पे, दैट इज referred to as vernacular. That would be countless. Unfortunately, several of the languages have gone extinct, especially in the archipelago of Andaman and Nicobar Islands and also in the northeastern state. Few of them have also got lost from the southern part of Indian subcontinent. Now, starting with, please watch this episode till the end. बिल्कुल आखिर तक देखिए. Try and understand what I'm trying to explain here. सीधे तौर पे I'm telling you कि भारतीय उपमहाद्वीप, which comprises of India, Pakistan, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Burma, and also taking into the geographical and historical context, we had the parts of Afghanistan and Tibet as well. In more geographical terms denoted by the British when they started to have their own survey about the region. तो हम बात करने जा रहे हैं इस एपिसोड में कि कौन सी भाषाएं भारतीय उपमहाद्वीप में बोली जाती हैं. What are the language tree? We really have to go into it. There is lot in the semantics here. समझने वाली बातें हैं कुछ जो है इसमें से. सबसे पहली बात तो ये है कि broadly speaking, there are 4 indigenous language trees: Dravidian, Indo-Aryan, Tibeto-Burmese, and Austroasiatic. Now, besides these 4 indigenous language trees, we have Persian, we had Chagatai Turkic being spoken during the times of Mughals, Urdu, that is the language which was developed, invented here in the Indian subcontinent, primarily in and around Delhi region, and of course English, brought in by the British. Now, I'm keeping this episode strictly on the indigenous languages which were risen from the Indian subcontinent. To start with, I'll talk about the Dravidian language tree. Now, Dravidian language tree is considered to be one of the oldest language tree of the Indian subcontinent. Well, in one of my previous episodes, I talked about the first out of Africa migration 65,000 years ago. Now, when the migrants had arrived in the Indian subcontinent, there were already an existing population of archaic humans. Of course, there was intermingling between the migrants and the existing population, and that resulted into the ancestry in the southern India and the northern India. Now, in southern India ancestry, which later on developed into more ethnic, diverse communities. Now, over there, we'll notice Dravidian language is not just spoken across the south of India, but also in the central India and in one part of Balochistan region in Pakistan currently. That is called Brohoi. It's really staggering to notice how usually when we talk in common parlance, जब भी हम normally बात करते हैं, we only refer to languages of Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, and Malayalam as a Dravidian language. Besides that, which all languages are there in the Dravidian language tree or the family, and what is the spread, the geographical spread of those languages? Let me just grab my gadget. Well, there we have. This is the map of Indian subcontinent. And there we have, of course, we all are aware of the regions of Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, which happens to be the major languages in terms of the number of speakers. Tamil is also spoken in Sri Lanka. It's second most important language here, second official language in Sri Lanka. Then if you zoom into the western coast in Karnataka, we have these two languages, Tulu and Kodava. While Tulu is spoken around the western coast of Udupi, Chikmagalur and Mangalore, Kodava is spoken slightly inside the coastline. Going up in the central region, we have Kolami, Gondi and Parji. On the eastern side, we have Kui, Gadaba, Kuruk and Malto, and, which I was talking about, Brohoi. It's spoken in the region of Balochistan, possibly parts of Sindh as well, but I'll discount the Sindh part because I could see a mountainous range in the physical relief. So it's primarily Balochistan region language, and parts of Afghanistan are also influenced, where you'll find the speakers of Brohoi. So we saw the extent of the area of the Dravidian language. Now, paradoxically, Dravidian language is the one which is also referred to by several historians and experts as language, also the script bearing close proximity with the Indus-valley civilization script, which is yet to be deciphered. Now, there is still to be a scientifically proven theorem about that. Till then, we can only have a speculation, but nonetheless, Dravidian is one of the oldest languages of the Indian subcontinent. Now, moving on to the next one, Indo-Aryan. Now, Indo-Aryan is a larger language of a much larger Indo-European language family tree. Now, Indo-Aryan languages were brought forth by the migration of the Eurasian or Central Asian steppe people here. There are several linkages to it. You will find the Indo-European languages also could be broken down into the Indo-Iranian language, Indo-Aryan language, of course, that is spoken across the subcontinent. Now, in the Indo-Iranian language, we have the Proto-Iranian, we have Nuristani, and we have a couple of other languages which cannot be considered as a part of subcontinent language. But of course, we have seen that historically, they've been influence of these languages, like Persian is one of them, which comes from the Proto-Iranian. After refinement of language in its own way, it is now spoken as Persian. Now, talking about the Indo-Aryan languages, we will start with the northern side of Indian subcontinent, Khowar Pashai Kohistani, spoken in the northern belt of Indian subcontinent, that include Kashmir, parts of Pakistan and possibly parts of Afghanistan, possibly the Wakha corridor, which is a small little belt between Pakistan and Central Asia, where we have one small corridor of Afghanistan. Then we have Shina, spoken across Gilgit-Baltistan region. Kashmiri Dogri, to have a better understanding, Dogri is now divided as Punjabi and Pahari Dogri. Then Pahari Hindi, spoken in Uttaranchal and parts of Himachal. Going further down, we have Punjabi, the great transnational entity spoken in the half of Pakistan and parts of northwest India. Sindhi, spoken in Pakistan, parts of Gujarat and parts of Rajasthan, which is touching the Indo-Pak border. Gujarati, Rajasthani, and nestled between Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, we have Khandeshi and Bhili. Marathi, Konkani, Odia, Bengali and Bihari, if we are to go towards the eastern side, Assamese and Nepali. And of course, in between we have Hindi, that's the largest spoken language in the country. Down south, we have Sinhala, spoken in Sri Lanka, Divehi, spoken in Maldives, the archipelago in the Indian Ocean, and Indian archipelago of Lakshadweep, where Mahal is the indigenous language. It's really interesting to note about how languages have traveled, the extent of languages. Now, once we start deconstructing the languages, of course, we also start tracing the journey of the origin of languages. It's really fascinating, of course, like each language that I've mentioned here, be it Dravidian tree, be it the European Indo-Aryan tree, or going forward Austroasiatic or Tibeto-Burmese tree, it has its own fascinating origin. And this is the history of a rich, diverse Indian subcontinent. Moving on to the last two languages, amongst them last two language tree rather, I beg your pardon. Let me just start with the Tibeto-Burmese tree. Now, in the Tibeto-Burmese language tree, we have Tibetic, populating the Tibet and parts of Himachal, Uttaranchal, parts of Ladakh as well. We have Rung, we have Tani, Naga, Meitei, Kukichin Mizo, which is primarily spoken in the northeastern states of Nagaland, Manipur and Mizoram. Konyak, Bodo Garo, spoken in parts of Assam and Meghalaya. So there you saw the extent and reach of the Tibeto-Burmese language. Now, Tibeto-Burmese language is a part of the larger Sino-Indian languages, which started off from the Mandarin region of China. Now, moving on to Austroasiatic language. Really interesting. We have primarily three Austroasiatic language: Munda, Khasi, and Nicobarese. Now, Munda is spoken in central India, whereas Khasi is primarily the Meghalaya Northeast language, and Nicobar is spoken in the Nicobar part of Andaman Nicobar Islands. If I have to show you on the map, so Munda, we have Central East India, Khasi, and going down we have Nicobarese. It's really interesting why it's termed as in Austroasiatic language. Now, if you see the extent of the language tree, it's going towards Indochina, Southeast Asia, and then it goes all the way to Australia. It's these languages, the spread, the extent, the travel, the migration that has helped us in understanding human movement from the first out of Africa, migration towards Indian subcontinent and down towards Indo-Chinese region, Southeast Asia and Australia. So clearly it's really important to understand how these languages were formed, how these languages were originated. Now, once we start understanding it, we'll obviously start to understand better way the diversity of the Indian subcontinent. Lastly, there are other unclassified language or language isolate, in which we have Andamanese, which is spoken by the Andamanese tribes of Great Andamanese, Jarawas, Bo, and other classified tribes of Andaman Nicobar Islands. Now, one language over there remains undeciphered, just like Indus-valley civilization language. That is the language spoken by the people of Sentinelese Island, the northern Sentinelese Island. They're referred to as a Sentinelese people, but we really don't know what they call themselves because there are restrictions over there by the government of India to go over there. There have been some attempts to outreach towards the indigenous people to try and learn the culture, to understand them, but they haven't been amenable to idea. Ever since then, the government of India has banned any kind of tourist activity or any excursion towards the North Sentinel Island. Some people have tried to go over there, but they've met with an unfortunate fate because those tribes over there, they have been given complete right by the government of India so as to safeguard and protect their territory. Now, this is something that we have to understand. Clearly, it will be a fascinating study once we get to know more about the North Sentinel people or the Sentinelese people. But for that, we have to wait till they themselves are open to the idea of having an exchange with us. Nonetheless, it's really fascinating to still have a tribe that is completely cut off from the rest of the world. Before leaving, I would like to state one important fact. Now, that is between the Dravidian and the Indo-Aryan languages. Dravidian is agglutinative, whereas Indo-Aryan is inflective. Kya hota hai ye? I know it's a complicated term, but to understand in more oversimplified way, I'll tell you, in agglutinative languages, which is Dravidian language family, there is value to each phoneme, जो आवाज निकलती है, the sound which each letter and word makes. Every letter or every sound has its own singular value. Whereas in inflective, there are values, but it's more in the auxiliary terms. Now, if one has to say the term, say for instance, let's have Tridev, a popular film. In Tridev, we have a single word, single syllable, but three phonemes, ta, ra, e. You understand? Whereas, if somebody has to write the same thing in Dravidian, so ta, in that they have to include, now they have to break down the word first. Ta, in terms of the strict consonantal value, is ta and her. Just like my name. Now, somebody has to write my name in south of India, and most of people possibly would write as R-A-J-A-T-H, whereas it's R-A-J-A-T. Now, why are they doing it? They're following their own syntactic understanding or their own syntax of language. Now, ta for them, a ta in Dravidian languages, Dravidian group of language tree is ta and her becomes ta. So, इसी तरीके से these two languages are referred to as agglutinative and inflective. I know it's complicated, but I've given you a small example. Possibly you'll understand and possibly you'll get to know why sometimes some people write your name with H in that. It's not their fault. It's not a fault indeed. It's just a simple different syntactic value of the word in two different languages tree, Dravidian and Indo-European. Well, I hope you like this episode. Please keep watching my program, The Open Format. Keep watching till the end of the episode and keep giving me feedback. It's your feedback which really helps me in making content for better. Thank you. See you soon. Goodbye.